Well, hi everybody. It's Mrs. Perryman. Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're enjoying your day and everything's going all right. Today we are going to be talking about sandwiches and one of my favorite subjects, pizza. And so I've got a slideshow here to share with you. And so right here it is. Here we go. Now then. Okay, so sandwich and pizzas. So what do you think of that big old sandwich there? It has a little bit of everything on there. Lots of lettuce, lots of meat, some little bit of different kinds of sauce that looks like tomato, cucumber. Goodness sake, that looks like a lot of sandwich. Okay, so this is going to be in chapter 16 in your book. And so that is where you will find the information to answer the questions that you'll see a little bit later that'll be put up on Moodle. Here we go. Okay, so there's two kinds of sandwiches, hot sandwiches and cold sandwiches. Do you have a favorite kind of sandwich? So I like to a lot of times I like hot sandwiches, so things like a hamburger or a hot ham and cheese. That would be some examples of a hot sandwich. A cold sandwich, it might be just like a one with lunch meat on it. Or remember the other day when we made our chicken salad. So if you had that on a sandwich, that would be a version of a cold sandwich. Okay, so some things, we think about a sandwich usually is stuffed between a couple of pieces of bread, but there's some other things that are technically a sandwich. It's something, it's usually meat filling on bread. And so things like an open face, like a hot turkey sandwich. And this right here, if you look at it, it has a slice of turkey, it has some gravy. Looks like that, maybe some mashed potatoes and maybe some cranberry type dressing. So technically, it's a sandwich, but you probably aren't going to be able to pick that up and eat it like you would a traditional type sandwich. So even though it's we think handheld, it may not always be the case. So and here's one. Do you guys like pita bread or pocket bread? Okay. So the bread. So if you look down here, bread is kind of the thing that makes a sandwich a sandwich. So things like pizza, for instance. Pizza has a breaded crust, and so technically pizza would fall in that sandwich category. Okay, so hamburgers and hot dogs, those are sandwiches. Okay, and pizza is a hot open face sandwich. Just a little bit of other information when you serve sandwiches, frequently if you put them on a plate, a traditional type sandwich is usually cut into halves or even fourths sometimes. So, but things like hamburgers and hot dogs, those are not served cut. And so a little bit of different types of serving techniques on those. Now our pizza, that would be one giant colossal sandwich. And I guess you could kind of fold it up maybe and eat it that way. But it seems to me it might be a lot easier to eat if we cut that into slices. Okay. So, well, whoever wondered why a sandwich is called a sandwich or where the actual sandwich came from? Well, just as a little bit of culinary trivia, we can note the humble beginnings of the sandwich to the fourth Earl of Sandwich, John Montague, and apparently the Earl was quite the card shark. And while he was playing his game, he asked his valet, his manservant, to bring him some meat between two pieces of bread so that he could continue playing cards and wouldn't have something all over him, so the bread would kind of hold the meat in place. And so he is credited with the invention of the sandwich.
Hi, Miss P.
Well, hey, Jamari, how are you today?
Pretty good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing very well, thanks. I'm so glad you tuned in today.
Is nobody else in the meet?
Nope, just you right now, but we're going to keep rolling here.
All
I've
right.
been talking to myself all this time.
All right.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, so here's our next slide, and this is open-faced hot sandwiches. Okay, and sometimes, well, the bread you'll have sauce and topping, obviously. Sometimes you'll see it kind of broiled. And sandwiches can be a lot of different sizes too. You know, some will be like a traditional, slice of bread kind of size, but it also might be small, like a little mini, like for like an hors d'oeuvre or something that you could just kind of pop in your mouth all in one bite. So they could be different sizes. Grilled cheese. There's a place over at Bentonville. If you get a chance to venture out, go over there. That is all about grilled cheese. And I mean, they have like the traditional that's just bread and cheese, and they've got every kind of ingredient you could possibly imagine. Peanut butter and grilled cheese. There's some that have sliced apples and grilled cheese. Some of them have different meats and veggies on there with grilled cheese. I mean, it is just about anything goes. And so in cheese, all the different kinds of cheese, some of them work really well with different kinds of fruit. Some of them are smoky, some of them are hot, some of them, I mean, there's just so many varieties that you can choose from, and lots of combinations. So grilled cheese is well, pretty okay in my book. So Jamar, have you ever heard of a panini? You know what a panini?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those kind of Italian type sandwich that is cooked on a griddle, or in a griddle. Actually, it's griddled, and it's like a hinged lid, like a waffle maker.
Yeah, it's with the grill lines on it.
Yeah, and it puts the grill lines on it. And it kind of
Yeah, panini bread.
Oh man, they're so good.
Yep.
Yeah, one day I had gone over to Joplin, and that Johnny Carino's has a really nice variety of paninis with different kinds of meat and cheese and veg on them. And worth the trip if you're over that way. Okay.
You saying Joplin?
Yep, in Joplin. Okay. So, and there's even, you ever had a deep fried sandwich like a Monte Cristo?
Yeah.
Goodness, anything goes whenever it comes to sandwiches. Whenever you can wrestle between, a couple of pieces of bread, or top on a piece of bread, you can sweet or savory or any combination. But a Monte Cristo has ham and Swiss cheese, and then usually some kind of a sweet something inside. Oftentimes you'll see like jelly, for instance. And then it's battered with like an egg type batter on the outside and deep fried. And then once it's deep fried, then you'll see a little dusting of powdered sugar. And a lot of times it's served with syrup. So no calories there, right?
Yeah, I one time had a Monte Cristo from Cheddar's, and they didn't make it right, and it was just pockets and pockets of grease, and it was really nasty.
Well, that doesn't sound very good. So, well, we might have to make the Mrs. Perryman version of this, because
good.
It is really quite a treat. So we'll see about making one of these.
All righty.
All right. So here's pizza. So again, not what your first go to when you think of a sandwich, but it does have all those ingredients that whenever we look up the definition of sandwich, it has a crust, which is like bread, and it has a topping, and usually some kind of a filling or sauce on it. And so, I mean, technically, looking at the definition, it's a sandwich. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, and who doesn't love pizza, right? Okay, cold sandwiches. So,
Subway.
Subway is like I don't know. I think everybody goes there once a week at least. It's just too handy, and they have every kind of sandwich topping you can think of. And but now they do cold and hot sandwiches. So
Yeah.
yeah. But that to me, that picture kind of looks like a Subway sandwich, don't you think? The way it's arranged in the bun. And they do typical, like this would be what we would call a submarine sandwich. And I guess it's because of the shape of it. It's shaped like a submarine. Would that be what you think, Jamari? I don't know if there's another reason why what would be called a submarine. So do you know what a wrap is?
I'll call it a sub.
So a wrap is something on a tortilla, generally speaking, or sometimes you'll see if it's not a tortilla, it might be something like a flat, something called flat out, or something that's tortilla like that the meat and filling can be rolled up in. A multi-decker, that would be like a club sandwich. So it has lots of different fillings inside. A canapé, those are, like I said before, we talked about those little appetizers, or those kind that you just kind of pop in your mouth. And a lot of times those will be on little pieces of toast that either someone's cut out or it might be made from like a small loaf that's been sliced and toasted. Tea sandwiches, a lot of times those will just be kind of, well, they can be different shapes, I guess, but generally they're cut into small pieces made just for, a bite or two. And they can have meat or maybe things like chicken salad or pate or different kinds of things on them. And they're served as little light little snacks for different little fussy occasions. Okay. The hamburger. So here's a good trivia question. The hamburger is considered the most popular sandwich in the US. And I mean, think about Sonic, for instance. Their big business is hamburger. And there's a lot of places that really, specialize in hamburger, and that's for a good reason, because it is, after all, the most popular sandwich. And so there's a lot of things that we see on hamburgers. Of course, the meat, and then there's the mayonnaise, mustard, and ketchup kind of controversy. Some people are only mustard, some people are only ketchup, some people are only mayonnaise. Some people have some version, mixed up thereof. Some people like their burger. One time I went into a restaurant and they called that burger 747. You know what 747 means? Plain. You wanted a burger plain with no dressing or anything like that, no veg, just the meat and the bread. So sometimes you'll see cheese, pickles, onions, lettuce, pretty much anything goes. Sometimes you'll see sesame seed bun like they have at our friends at McDonald's. Sometimes they're plain buns. So just lots of different styles, but similar in the way they're made. Okay, bread. Look at these beautiful loaves of bread. This shape of bread, which is like your typical Wonder Bread and typical bread that you'd buy in a bag at the grocery store, or even make it home in a loaf pan, those are called Pullman loaves. And Pullman is the name of a railroad car. That was the name of the type of car. It was called a Pullman car. And this loaf of bread kind of resembles that shape of a Pullman railroad car. And so they call it a Pullman loaf. And that's why it's long and narrow and tall. And that is described as a Pullman loaf. Okay, hard rolls, those are the rolls that are designed to be kind of pulled apart and eaten. Um, I don't know, you don't see, I mean, you might see a sandwich, but it's a little bit hard to bite into those, but you might see it. I don't know, I've seen like some pretzel buns before, and those have a little bit more of a texture to them. And so you might see that on a sandwich. Good old pita bread. I love pita bread. And it makes kind of a neat pocket inside that you can fill up with all kinds of yummy goodness. French bread. Our friends down at Subway, that's kind of what those long submarine sandwiches have their version of French bread. Those so it's sliced on its side and laid open, and then the filling is put in. A good old tortilla would be fantastic for rolling something up in. And flatbread is kind of like tortilla. Sometimes it's a little bit bigger, and sometimes it's a little puffier, but it's kind of along that same line of the way that it's used. Okay, let's talk about spreads for a minute. So putting things like butter or mayonnaise on the bread before you start putting in the meat and the cheese and the veg, just kind of adds a moisture barrier, and it keeps the bread from becoming soggy. And so that's a good thing to remember if you're making sandwiches ahead to be served a little bit later. You'll put just a little bit of butter on the bread. It'll kind of help it hold a little bit better. Now, if you're toasting it, that's something else, and you don't want to go crazy with the butter. But if you're not toasting it, again, it does add a moisture barrier that'll keep your bread from becoming soggy too fast. Okay, man, look at all those fillings. That looks like a beautiful club sandwich there. This looks like a chicken salad. And that's kind of some kind of a, I don't know, like a barbecue chicken salad maybe. So just about anything goes in a salad. I think they look pretty when they have a variety of fillings. Like this one's got cheese and tomatoes and a couple of different kinds of meat. And so all the colors look really pretty laid out there on the plate. And just like this says here, you're really only limited by your creativity or whatever you can find in your kitchen to put on a sandwich, because just about anything goes. Okay, if you're working in the food service industry, sandwiches, hamburgers, that kind of thing, they're all going to be pretty common fare, and so you're going to be making some of those. A good way to set that up, if you kind of imagine yourself at Subway, that the sandwich station there where they are putting the sandwich together, that is by no accident the way that is set up. If you think about it, when you walk up there, the first thing they ask you is what kind of bread you want, right? Because that's the starting point, the jumping off point for making a sandwich. And then they ask you what kind of meat. Then they ask you about the veg. Then they ask you about the topping. I guess back up, they ask you if you want cheese and toast and all that. But there's an order to it. And being able to work efficiently, as they're assembling that sandwich for you, they're working their way down the line to the cash register. And so it makes sense the way it's set up. And so if you're working, even in the back of the house, having that sandwich station set up where things are just right in reach and they're in a logical order of how you're going to use them. You have your equipment that's there, your spatulas and the parchment paper and all those things that you're going to be using. The prep cook has been in, earlier and has gotten all of your containers filled with sliced onions and pickles and cheese and sliced tomatoes and spinach and all those toppings. And so all you have to do is just grab those out of that refrigerator that's below your work surface and just grab and go. It makes for really efficient sandwich production, and your customers can get what they need really fast and be on their way. And that's what we want, and that's the idea behind a sandwich. It can be quick. Okay, some equipment things that you'll see in a sandwich station, just like I was talking about, this is kind of what a sandwich station would look like here, and these are all refrigerated bins with these little drop-in containers, and all these containers are prepped by the prep cook either the day before or that morning, filled with all of the kinds of things that go on your sandwiches. And there are extras and backups of each thing in a refrigerator that is underneath that work area. And then as the sandwich artist is using those things or using them up, they just take one empty container out and put the filled one back in. These little things, they look like ice cream scoops, but they're actually called portion scoops. And if you look at them closely on the inside of these scoops on the bale, it has a number, and that number corresponds with ounces, like how big of a scoop each one of those makes. And we've talked about pricing food and how restaurants know how much to sell their things for, and they have figured very closely how much their ingredients cost. And so the way that they keep a handle on that is with these portion scoops, because they price their sandwich for, let's just say, like a 6-ounce scoop of tuna salad. Well, if you give an 8-ounce scoop of tuna salad, you've given your customer too much, and so you didn't make enough money on the sandwich. And the reverse of that, even if you give them a 4-ounce scoop, well, they didn't get the value that they paid for. And so these portion type scoops help to make sure that you're giving the customer what they paid for, but you're not giving away too much, so that it helps you make sure that you're making the money that you need to make. This little gizmo here is a what we call like a toaster oven, like you would see these at Subway, and it toasts and browns, melts the cheese, and toasts the sandwich. Where it's not like a microwave, because a microwave doesn't do that. And so this is like a toaster oven type situation. And these are really expensive too. I looked into one a couple of years ago to put out front, because I thought we might do a sandwich station, and they were like a couple $1,000s. So, but all restaurant equipment is pretty expensive. But anyway, they definitely do make a sandwich pretty whenever it's nice and toasted like that. Okay, serving sandwiches, and like I mentioned before, with the exception of hamburgers and hot dogs, generally speaking, you'll see your sandwiches served sliced. And that's just because it's easier to eat than a big old square of sandwich. Makes them easier to hang on to and to bite into. And some sandwiches, like in the case of a club sandwich, those are even served quartered in 4 pieces. So some sandwiches, they're just so big, you almost have to be able to get them in your face. Here's canapes, and this is just a French word for little sandwiches, little mini sandwiches. And see here, this is bread down here and there, and these little yummy bits are all served on some kind of little toasted bread morsel, and one of them have cheese or some type of vegetable or some variation combination of those. And they're all made to be really pretty to look at and colorful and little taste bites. And so they're meant to make a presentation and just be something that is just a bite or two, usually served at some type of like a cocktail party or some type of a mixer or something where people have small plates and they're standing around and visiting and that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So that concludes the slideshow for this section. I have not put up your book, your questions from the book yet. And so I'll be doing that in the next little bit. And I'll go ahead and put up, of course, this recording as well. So you can refer back to it as necessary. So anyway, I hope you guys are well, and we will talk soon.